How are you?
And we're recording.
All right.
Oh, I'm so cute.
Hi, everybody.
You?
Tonight, I'm going to introduce you to somebody who's going to become a household name. So you get to see him. It's like Nirvana. People who talk about seeing Nirvana play at a high school concert before they got big. Michael Adams is one of the smartest people I've ever met. I've met him through my campaign. This guy is going to do great things. So, Michael, let the fun begin and tell your story. It's all yours.
All right. Well, I'm Michael Adams, of course. I started the Change the Narrative Granite Falls group in June after George Floyd, after just sitting around twiddling my thumbs thinking about what I could do in social justice and just how could I help to change the local town environment. Been a resident of Granite Falls for about 2 years at this point in 2018, and going through town. Granite has a reputation for being an abrasive town and not welcoming to outsiders, but a small community. Everybody knows each other, and a lot of people are willing to help when they know someone. But my story is, earlier in the year, there were some graffiti with racial slurs and swastikas that were around. And pretty much the town kind of talked about it on the discussion board, and they kind of went away. And so once Ahmaud Arbery happened, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, everything just started to kind of build up inside of me of like, I got to do something. I got to say something. And I was at the IGA, the local grocery store here. And I walked out, I was putting groceries in my car, and a man drove by and called me the N-word. And I didn't do anything. Because in my head, I was just like, man, this guy's an idiot. And I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? Like, we got protests happening, the rioting had happened, looting, things like that had happened those last couple of days. And I thought, he's calling me that because he associates me with that. And he wants to try and hold that power over me. So I thought, like, what could I do to defend myself? Because obviously I'm not going to go chase the guy down. I'm not going to chase the next person down. I'm not going to react out of anger. What can I do to start changing how people see that and how people see me? Instead of seeing me as someone that they can call a racial slur and drive away, see me as someone that deserves respect. See me as someone who's a member of the community. So what I decided to do was just reach out. I talked to a couple neighbors, and in my community, we had a meeting and we talked about things. We talked about racism. We talked about things that were going on. And so it got to the point where I decided to create a Facebook group. And so I just wanted to give a safe space for people to talk, give a safe space.
Uh-oh.
We lost your audio, Michael. Oh, we can't hear.
Yeah.
Can everyone hear me okay now?
Now we can.
Okay. So I created the group to just give a safe space for education and learning and the discussion of social injustice and racial inequalities. I saw a lot of Facebook arguments happening in other pages. I saw a lot of friend pages where personal pages where people were just being nasty to each other. So I thought there's got to be a way to have this conversation. There's got to be a way to bring people together in a way where we can have these conversations and talk to each other with respect. So that was kind of why I created Change the Narrative. And in doing so, I just really wanted to just try to dig into history and dig into the current events and issues with law enforcement and police.
Man, we got to buy him a hotspot.
Your audio dropped again. No.
What's happening and give ideas to what we can move forward. So in that process, it's just been how do you create that awareness? How do you bring attention to those things? And some of it is by posting, and some of it's been by sign waving here in town, and just looking outward into other towns nearby to try and reach out and make other community contacts to bring our voices together. And that's pretty much all I've wanted to do. And so now, in the recent time, the group has started to try to organize and be more efficient in the action steps that we're taking in building relationships with the community. So we're doing a book drive through November 16th. Calling it the New Approach Book Drive. We're going to donate books to the Granite Falls School District, books that are discussing diversity and equity and anti-bullying, and just books that are there to help students to look at things in a more multicultural way, to look at things in a way of equity, to look at ways of how to treat each other with respect and dignity. And some of those books are also for educators to look at curriculum in a more equitable way, and to ensure that they too are pushing themselves to be more anti-racist.
Oh, your audio dropped again, Michael. Oh, now you're frozen. There it is.
Oh, I think this might happen. This is Granite Falls Life. Sorry about that. Where did I leave off for you guys?
The book drive, anti-bullying books, to challenge people to make people think more. Let's put it that way.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, the book drive is to help with just educating and getting people to challenge their way of thinking and how we treat each other with respect and dignity, and understanding and respecting the differences of culture and learning the history of culture, because we all play a role in building our country, and we all play a role in building.
By the way, everybody, rural internet access is part of my platform.
Yeah.
Goal is to. Did I cut out again?
Yeah, you're back.
Oh man, this is gonna be rough. I don't know how long this can go.
Turn your video off, Michael. It'll save you some bandwidth.
He could try calling in as well.
Okay.
Because phone service should be a little bit more reliable.
Okay, hold on 1 second here. I can't try calling in. All right. Oh gosh. I'm failing on the call-in thing here. What's the number I call?
It's on the link.
All right, let me go to the link here. Yeah, it's just it really my main focus and where I see the biggest need for our community is just to build on communication and to start to break down the structure of misinformation that people have when it comes to racism and the history of racism in our country, and the misinformation that has come out with even the current events, a lot of people rush to judgment on these issues that are happening, and we have to be patient about the facts on both sides. We have to be patient. We have to get the information. We have to process that. And where I see a lot of disagreement is just we look at a situation and we make our judgment, and we don't want to hear the other side. We don't want to hear another perspective. And without that other perspective, that's how we develop our biases. And so if you're looking at it from an anti-racism perspective, you know, if you don't hear the other side and you don't look at it from a different way, you're going to grow into looking at that, you know, everyone is out to get you. You're going to be super defensive on certain things, and not everyone who does something that is a microaggression of racism is actually racist. Sometimes that lack of knowledge, that lack of understanding, that moment where you feel someone's being racist is actually a teachable moment for them to learn something about culture, to learn something about gender equality, to learn something about sexual orientation. And if you take that moment to teach them instead of chastising them or instead of embarrassing them, maybe you will use them in a more long-term way. And so for me personally, I want to focus on just trying to get people.
Oh,
Losing.
you.
If you want the number, I have the number pulled up.
Disagree with us, we're never going to actually teach them anything. The only way they're going to learn is if we keep extending that olive branch out, and we keep giving those reminders of, hey, that's not.
Hey, Ethan, put that number.
I sent it to
that number
Joy.
to Michael, please.
Yeah, I sent it to Joy, so he has it. So she has it. So if you look at your chat, it should be there. I can't send it to Michael. It only lets me send a private chat right now, only to the host.
Okay, hold on. I'll look at this number here. Try to call.
Continue on.
We're back on.
All right. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly where I left off, but I will go to where I think I was, which was my personal philosophy is just that, education and communication are the two keys to making a change in our community, as well as, on a larger level nationally. I think that, there's a lot of focus that has been placed into keeping history hidden and keeping some of the atrocities of inequity as, minimizing the effect on what happens currently and what also really happened in the past. And so it takes a lot of soul searching for all of us. It takes a lot of unpacking these moments, because we're all in shock, and we're all learning how to not only resolve and work through the feelings of the past, that things that we can't control, but how do we make those things right now? How do we fix? How do we help people who are in need, because we've come to realize that they didn't put themselves there, and so it is something that I don't have the answer to, and it is something that I am racking my brain on trying to figure out. But I think that the most impactful thing we can do now, until we can figure out how we fix those things, is to just educate ourselves and to start to build relationships as we communicate with one another and as we build a stronger network to start addressing some of the things that we can fix right now. There's things locally that we can do that don't take changing policy and law. There are things that we can do to start helping one another. But there are some things that are going to take, tearing down some of the larger systems of systemic racism that have been built. And we're going to have to make some huge changes through legislative measures. And if we don't have the right people in place to do that, we're always going to run into these same barriers that we have. So we have to focus on strengthening our local leadership and voting in the people who want to be anti-racist, voting in the people who truly do believe in gender equality, voting in people who truly do believe that sexual orientation it matters, and that we shouldn't be marginalizing people for their differences. So if we get people in office who see the need and who truly want to fix the need and truly want to make things more equitable, then we will start to see progress and change in a major way.
Michael, can I ask you a question that I don't know the answer to?
Okay.
Well, one of many, but about half of us have stood with you sign waving in this meeting. The other half haven't. What made you start sign waving?
So sign waving was honestly a social experiment of just wanting to see like what people would do and how people would react to seeing people stand up for social justice in Granite Falls. I saw on the town discussion board, I saw a lot of people, standing in, voicing their concern and support for Snohomish when the militia was there. And a lot of people, made the comments of like, they wish they'd come here. They don't know what they'd get if they came to Granite. And I was like, I'm going to bring what really is there to Granite. And because a lot of the protests, a lot of everything has not been violent, it has not been destructive. And even Snohomish was not a violent event on the part of the protesters on May 31st. So I was like, I'm going to go stand out there and hold a sign. And I went out there, and it was just me and Crystal and her daughter the first time. And as it grew, and you all started to come, or those of you who've been there, you guys saw that the more people we got, the more contentious things became with some of the drivers and some of the people who wanted to voice their opinions. When I was there by myself, no one really said anything. It was just, oh, it's Michael standing on the side of the road. Like, who cares? But as others stood with me, it became this thing of what are they doing here? And the rumors came of us being responsible for attempted break-ins in vehicles, and us being responsible for people being afraid to go into Rite Aid to shop. And, nothing that we did was disrespectful to anyone. Nothing that we did was aggressive. We held signs, we waved, we stood there. We didn't destroy anything. We didn't riot. We didn't march and obstruct traffic. We didn't do anything that would point to, negative behavior or disrespectful behavior. We invited the sheriff to come out there. We invited, I invited Ryan. That's how, we ended up talking, and we ended up sending out that invitation for you to come. Klaus was the same way. I also reached out to our elected officials, Robert Sutherland and Carolyn Eastlick, and they never actually came to take part and experience the sign waving. But I reached out to Granite Falls City Council as well. I wanted everyone to be a part of this in a way where they got to see that our group and the people of Snohomish County who have came from other areas, everyone was here for the right reason. Everyone was here for the purpose of change. Everyone was here to be peaceful, and to actually take action and commit to taking action in the future to try and create change. And that's why we started Sign Waving.
I think Granite Falls should thank us
That
for
was
many reasons.
Okay, Sue.
One of them being that we increased the tax base of Granite Falls by tens of thousands of dollars with the sheriffs who were watching us the whole time, writing tickets to people who were not friendly to us. And it wasn't because of what they were saying, it was because they were driving like idiots.
Yeah.
I would love to know what that number is. I would love to know how many thousands of dollars of tickets were written. How many people would you say per event got pulled over? 4 or 5? I would
Yeah,
guess.
I definitely would say, you know, on the low end 3, but I would definitely say that's a minimum of 3 every week. There were at least 3 people getting pulled over.
And we, you know, look, the protests were overwhelmingly positive. I don't, would you disagree with that?
No, yeah, I would say, you know, definitely a solid 80% of positivity. And I think that range of that 20% of negativity, it varied from week to week, depending on the time and depending on the amount of people that were out there. Some people were more brave than others, but there was definitely a negative vocal population, but it definitely was not the majority.
Correct. So, I mean, to everybody, you know, I have never been a big protester outside of a picket line. You know, that's not who I was. But I got my eyes open by going to these, and I did call out both Carolyn Eslick and Robert Sutherland for not showing up. And I told them specifically, hey, if you think this isn't a problem, why don't you come out and stand with us? And of course, we're still waiting on that. And we'll be waiting till Hell Freeze is over. But it was an eye opener for me. You know, anybody else who has been out there with us, you know, say what you got to say. But wow, that's pretty much all I can say. You know, I sniffed out a Nazi, and shamed him and made him leave. And you know, we were keeping a running profile of who was screaming and who wasn't. Let's put it that way. I can turn my video on. But if you want to see what your society really feels, go hold a Black Lives Matter sign on a street corner and see the reactions you get. And while the majority is going to be positive, there's going to be a whole lot of not liking what you see. I turn it back over to you, Michael.
All right. So it looks like Ethan, you've got your hand raised. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, I have a question for you. I was wondering if you could give me some advice on a personal situation that's going on. So my my grandpa, who is currently living in North Carolina, used to live here for about 20-ish years. Me and him the other day were having a okay conversation. We were talking about computer parts for a little bit. And then the conversation got into politics, and then it slowly drifted towards race topics. I myself am a member of Snohomish for Equity. I protested as well, and I made that clear to him as well that I do that. But what it kind of got to at that point was at the end of the conversation, because I hung up on him, he started chanting F Black Lives Matter, and that kept saying all lives matter and kept shouting that at me. I mean, that affects me a lot personally, and I want to try to change that because I don't know exactly what I should be saying to him personally, to tell him that he can't say that because that is racist by saying that. And I was like, what would you suggest I do in that situation?
And you know, the family dynamic thing is a tough one, because there's a lot of passion that comes into play that can block some of the ability for people to actually just simply have the conversation. And, I think when it comes to someone like your grandfather, like what you have to remember is that he grew up in a different era. He came from a different space where there was a lot more that was acceptable during his time. And so he's gone through this transformation of there were some people who he probably had some friends. He probably had some people that he could confide in and share some of his beliefs with. And now we're in this space where people are being called out for those things. And there is a line being drawn where, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you could be neutral in being an anti-racism, right? Like there was a I'm not in it. It doesn't bother me. I don't see it. I'm colorblind. Colorblindness and anti-racism was acceptable 20 years ago, 30 years ago, where now we're saying, hey, like you can't be colorblind. There isn't a neutral ground in seeing racism or not. Like you either see it and you address it or you don't. And if you don't, then you're complicit to allowing this to continue. And so, with your grandfather, I would encourage you to kind of just take it a step back from the Black Lives Matter, because that is like the hot button right now. Take it away from Black Lives Matter and just take a step back and just discuss what his definition of racism is. What does he see as racist? Because what you'll find most likely is that you'll have a discussion about microaggressions and macroaggressions. And your grandfather is going to refer to a lot of the macroaggressions of racism, a lot of the extreme things of racism that happen. And he's going to say, well, this doesn't happen anymore. And we're not segregated anymore. And redlining is now illegal. But he's not going to talk about the daily issues of microaggressions that people go through. And he's not going to talk about how statistically how things go. He's not going to want to talk about that information. And so if you start to just like pick out and find like where you and he may have a little bit of traction to have a conversation. Like maybe you can't talk about police brutality, but maybe you can talk about the inequities of the healthcare system. Maybe you can talk about the education system, and you can talk about, you can talk about how Martin Luther King only gets discussed in January. Maybe you can build on the conversation of Black History Month and how Black history is truly American history. And maybe it doesn't need to be just discussed in a month. And if you could start in those kind of areas and build out with conversation with him, then you can go back and revisit that Black Lives Matter conversation. And when it comes to the All Lives Matter thing, like I try to look at it as you talk about equity and how equality is all of us getting the same thing. We all sit down at the table and we all get the same meal. But equity is going to be looking at the 2-year-old and saying they can't cut their food. Let's cut their food. Looking at the elderly with dentures and saying, hey, like grandma, do you have your dentures? You got what you need. Does this food need to be pureed? And you make the accommodations to everyone there. So we're all sitting at the table and we're all sharing in the same meal. We're all spending time together and getting to know each other. But we have the utensils that we need, and we have the tools that we need to be there and be present together. And I think if you approach things with your grandfather that way, you may be able to not deteriorate your relationship with him while slowly getting him to have these conversations.
I think that was a really good answer. I think I'm gonna try doing that. Because I think that he's specifically not trying to be racist, not all the time at least, towards what I'm saying. I mean, as I've texted with him, and I think he's thinking of it more of a political way as well. Like he's very far right, very far conservative, and has a lot of crazy conservative reasonings as well. And I don't think that, like what you're saying as well, as he's specifically trying to be racist. I'm just trying. I think those are some good ideas to talk about first, as you're saying, and then go towards like what actually Black Lives Matters means instead of talking about like going straight into it.
Yeah, and on the other end, if he wants to discuss Black Lives Matter, I mean, just go back to the history and start at the beginning and start and remind him. What I've done with some people is I've had to remind them that Black Lives Matter didn't start over police brutality. Black Lives Matter started with Trayvon Martin, and George Zimmerman was a neighborhood watchman. And I remind them of the fact that George Zimmerman called 911 and the dispatcher told him to stand down. Dispatcher told him to not follow Trayvon, and he continued to follow him. And so where the frustration came from with the Black community in that was that George Zimmerman didn't follow the instructions from the professionals who deal with this. And when it came down to it, law enforcement said that he was justified. And the law, the Stand Your Ground law in Florida, said he was okay to defend himself. And so that's where Black Lives Matter came into the forefront of this was, how are we going to change the laws? How are we going to change the system to ensure that when we see something like this happen, that it doesn't happen again, that someone doesn't get away with profiling someone and the law protects them? And so that's where it came from. And so I would go back to that and sort of just, discuss that issue and discuss the fact that, make sure he understands that, Black Lives Matter, the global network is the global network, but it isn't representative of the movement. There's a movement outside of the network, and there's many, many, many different organizations that are a part of it. In recent months, I say over the summer, I went to Washington, D.C. to the NAACP, get off our next march, and no one ever tells me that the NAACP is a terrorist organization. No one ever says the NAACP can't support Black Lives Matter, because the NAACP has 120 plus years of history behind it. It has 120 years of being an organization that is anti-racist and an organization that's been inclusive and has members of color and has members that are non-people of color, and everyone has been a part of this movement. They, were in the forefront of the civil rights movement, and people can't argue that, but they can argue with the global network because it hasn't been established very long, and they've had some missteps with some of the things that they've said that people don't agree with, but they don't represent the entire movement. I try to tell people, you had Martin Luther King, you had the Black Panthers, you had the Nation of Islam, you had Malcolm X, you had so many other civil rights leaders. That's what you're going to have here with Black Lives Matter. You're going to have a whole lot of different people who step up and try to be a leader and try to push things forward. And it's the effort of all these different groups that make things work. I think that when you look at the civil rights movement, you look at the early 1960s, you see that people like Malcolm X and the Black Panthers started to evolve and come out into leadership. I think that it was their militantness and their extremities that people did not like politically that helped Dr. King get to the table to have these conversations with his nonviolent approach, because people didn't want the extreme to happen. And so I think that's kind of where I see things now is a lot of people see Black Lives Matter as an extreme organization. And I think that if there are some groups, like even myself with Change the Narrative, if the group can remain in good graces and remain peaceful and remain focused on action and making things happen through the leading by example, I think that there's a way that we can bring people to the discussion of having better conversations about all of this.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, he definitely, I think, needs to look at those other reasons on why Black Lives Matter is like something that's not like an extremist organization, because he justified his meaning of not liking Black Lives Matter and saying that all lives matter, specifically because of him watching Fox News and seeing quote unquote violent protests happening in Seattle and stuff, and says that all those protesters are rioters and they're Marxists trying to take down the government, when not that's not what's happening. And I think that talking about stuff like what you're saying definitely would be, I think, a better way to solve that. So thank you for that.
Okay, you're welcome.
Can I say something here real quick?
Yeah.
I've been to multiple Black Lives Matter rallies throughout Skagit and Snohomish counties now, and a lot of them are organized by people Ethan's age or just a couple years older. And what all these kids, now that I'm in my 40s, I call them all kids, are saying is, society, you're not going to treat my friends like shit. And that is a great message to have. It's young people standing up for each other. And I know it goes beyond that. But if you want, if you want to make the issue hyper local, especially to your grandfather, there's nothing wrong with you standing up for your friends. And I think your grandfather and my dad would get along very well. Yes, there have been lots of hang up phone conversations with my dad, but seeing the young people stand up for their friends is, in ways that I haven't seen in my lifetime, is something worth seeing. And as long as you guys stick to that message, y'all can change society, whether your grandfather or my father like it or not.
I'm not even just standing up for my friends. I mean, my dad is Dominican. He is darker skinned. He's not, and I feel like I take personal offense. Like when my grandpa says "F Black Lives Matter," because my dad even, and me, I'm 50% Hispanic. So like that's,
It's more personal to you.
See, I knew that Michael was going to give a really good, eloquent answer that was the most peaceful. And I give Ryan a hard time because he's always like, the bull horns, they're going to lock and he's going to get his point out there, which is great. And then I fall somewhere in the middle. And what you're saying, Ethan, it is bringing me back to my childhood. My grandfather is Native American, and my grandmother, who he married, was very white and very German and very racist. So the way that my mom raised us was to confront them outright at the dinner table. Like every holiday, if grandma came over and she used the wrong terms for talking about people of color, she said, "You tell grandma that's not okay. And I want you to do it every time." So we would have these big arguments, and my grandpa would always just kind of peacefully, silently let it happen. But yeah, I come from the other side of a family that has this happening, and it would not be unusual to hear my grandma use the N-word at the table at Thanksgiving. And my mom would say, "Don't let her do it. You call her out because you got to make her uncomfortable. You got to let her know there's no safe place to be that way and say that way." So I think that there's a right way to do it, and you will find your comfort zone in that. And I think those conversations that Michael's talking is probably a lot better than my confrontational way. But eventually, by the time we were in our 20s, grandma didn't use those words anymore. Oh, it did work.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, Joy, is actually great, because I've had this conversation with others who take a different approach than myself, and I truly believe that just like how in an academic setting we learn, we all learn differently, whether it be auditorily or visually or through touch, and I think it's the same way when it comes to learning about how to be socially acceptable with racism and how to use the right terms. Like some people need the abrasive, shut it down right when it happens and address it in that moment. And others, you can come to them on a one-on-one level, and you can come to them with a more academic approach, and you can come to them with the history, and they're going to accept that as well. And then there's some where they're not going to change until it hits home. They're not going to change until they see it happen. If it doesn't happen in front of them, they're never going to actually believe that it happens. And that's just how it is. I personally remember I had a friend who his stepfather was very racist. And when I first met him, he wouldn't even let me come into the threshold of their house. Like I had to stand at the door and wait for my friend to come out, and I never got to go in. And it took years for us to build the friendship that he and I had, and to build a trust where he began to see me as a person and to treat me with a little bit more respect. And the first time that he heard someone saying the N-word after he began to like respect me, he addressed it and he talked to the person and like told him that he didn't want him to say it anymore. And he came to me and he like apologized for just how he had used the word and how he had treated me for all this time. And he said it took him a couple of years before he realized that like, hey, I didn't fit any of the stereotypes that he had grown up around. My parents didn't fit any of the stereotypes. They took care of his stepson, and they reached out and they extended the olive branch and they spoke with him, and others spoke with him as well in my family. And so some people have to live it. They just have to like take that time to build those relationships. And I think that comes back to that us as the people who are further along and being anti-racist, and us who have that knowledge and who are able to have a diverse friendship and family, we have to just keep extending that the opportunity for them to learn. And once we give up on them, all we're doing is reinforcing their negative behavior. They're looking for an out. And if we give them that out, they're going to take it and they're just going to double down on their biases and prejudice.
Your amount of patience is staggering. I don't, it's one of the things that makes you so much better than me. I don't know how you put up with it, man. I really don't. I think you're going the right way. I'm just saying that I couldn't do it myself. And look, this goes beyond this issue. I just have no patience for people who are assholes. So you have the right approach. It's so shitty that so many people in America have to prove themselves to others because of the color of their skin. And that whole concept is ridiculous. And I mean, I don't even know what more to say about that. Nobody should have to. I turn it back over to you.
All right. Well, it definitely has not always been a peaceful thing for me. It always hasn't been patience. I've learned that because I used to be a little bit more abrasive and I used to be more confrontational about things. It came to be a point of contention as far as employment, and it became a reason for people to distance themselves and blame me for being the root of the issue. And so I learned that I had to be patient. I have to like dig down and keep things at a point of like where people can take the emotion out of things, where people aren't able to say that my emotions are running things. And, you know, it was never my emotion. It's my passion. You know, it's the me knowing that, hey, you're not treating me with respect, and I demand that. And so in demanding that respect, I learned that to have a more patient approach gets a little bit more further with outing that person who is disrespectful and not allowing them and giving them the excuses of blaming and victim blaming. And it takes away that victim blaming ability when I'm patient. Go ahead, Ethan.
So I got another discussion question for you. So looking at what's been going on in the city of Snohomish, and I'm sure you've seen everything that's been happening at least the past few months with the Proud Boys invading, our mayor going crazy online. There's just been a lot. I mean, in fact, I'd even say this, that like right now I'm trying to figure out the best way to stand up for those things, because we can't all be out there every day waving signs forever. And because nothing has changed, even when we were in the city of Snohomish doing all that stuff, our mayor has not changed. The city council has not done anything to affect any change that we've at least been wanting. And what the problem I'm seeing is I don't know what the best way to get the word out about that. I mean, even Ryan, a while ago, if you remember, you posted on your Facebook page a post about Sutherland and how he's a Proud Boy and stuff. I took that post and I basically reshared it onto the Snohomish County Crime Watch / community page, where there's like, I'd say it's 50-50 on Republicans and Democrats in that. And within the first half an hour, I took the post down after about an hour because it got really, really bad. But the first half an hour, 30 people commented about either how the Proud Boys are a good organization, or how they're members of it, or how they do let other people that aren't white into it. And it's really bad, and I don't even know what the best way is to fix that. I mean, I'd like to get word out and stand up for it without causing other problems, because I don't know if you know Rachel Escoto. She's one of the founding members of
Yeah,
Snohomish for Equity.
I do.
Yeah, she had the same problem where in the Snohomish, that same page, she was posting there, but she was receiving threats and stuff from people. And so she left the page. And I want to be able to stand up as well and do the same thing, but I'm also like, I don't want to receive death threats from Proud Boys and stuff and get a bunch of backlash. So I'm wondering, what do you suggest is the best way to create change, especially like for me in Snohomish? What do we do with our mayor? What do we do with all that? What's your answers to these problems?
Well, I can tell you I'm very well aware of your mayor, and I actually, when in the beginning of summer in June, I actually had a Juneteenth event there at downtown. And so my purpose was, I had reached out to Snohomish for Equity and Generation Justice, and tried to do something. My purpose was to honor the work that you all were doing there, and to hopefully come from a different perspective to the mayor, to get some traction with conversation with him and change. And so he spoke at my event, and I had asked him to address some specific questions in regards to the May 31st incident, and in regards to what his thoughts were on systemic racism and how he planned to address it. And he did not. But I do have someone who wrote and did an article about with his speech. And so his speech word for word is in there, and I could actually send that to you. Yeah, and so the thing with that individual, your mayor, is I think that, you know, there's been many things that have happened where he has shown a lack of respect, a lack of understanding of how his actions are offensive, and how he has aligned himself with people who continue to, you know, cause harm and threats and things to other people. I have myself been doxxed and harassed by the Proud Boys as well, and former Proud Boy, whoever they claim to be. And it is something that I do think about. But I would encourage you to continue to stand. And if you need to reach out to me or others who are being vocal, we can approach these things as a group. I think it's great that you posted in that group. My personal philosophy is to not delete things that are contentious, because you want to expose the people who are saying those things. And you want to be able to. Okay.
Yeah, the admins took it down after about an hour or two, because they realized that there was so much negativity coming out of that one post that they just couldn't keep it up there anymore. I guess I either that, or they thought that they didn't want other people to see it, just because it either hurt or it helped Ryan Johnson's campaign. I don't know which one.
And on the other side of that is, when it comes to those things, I've started to just screenshot, and I don't share all the screenshots of threats and racism that have come my way, but I have them. And at some point, they're going to be something that I can use, and I can show a huge pattern of certain individuals and even the people who aren't necessarily speaking, but I've seen a pattern of people who want to remain silent on the comment end of things, but by their pattern of what they like. They hit that emoji button and they hit those likes on comments, and it definitely shows you where they stand. And you don't have to type out a phrase to me, but if you like the All Lives Splatter meme, I'm pretty sure I know where you stand in regards to that. So, and those are things like I want to address the Granite Falls City Council on their lack of taking a stance in all of this as well. I've had some dialogue with two members who have given me the verbal discussion of, hey, yes, I agree. We have to take a stance. We have to be more anti-racist, and that would be great, but I don't think others will. And the others haven't said much, and the council and Chamber of Commerce and school board members, they all started to take some diversity courses this fall. So they had classes in September, October, and they have this last one in November. And they got a consultant in from Renton who specializes in this kind of training. And I plan on approaching them after they complete the last class in November. And I expect them to share with our town what they learned. I expect them to issue out a formal letter that explains what they took from these classes, and if it did anything for them. If it didn't change how they see things, then I'd like them to explain why. And so I think that's the thing that we have to do with your mayor and your city council, is to continue to have these meetings and to not press up and not stop pressing for them to take their stance, and to elaborate on why they're against certain things, to explain why they support certain people. And the more that they do that, the more they expose their true feelings towards what we're doing, because you're either anti-racist or you're not. And so if they don't want to do things to be anti-racist and to denounce racism in your town, then they accept it. And that's how we have to look at it.
Can I provide something a little bit? Hey, Ethan, my name's Natalie. I live up in Arlington, and I've attended some of Michael's sign wavings, and he's come to some of ours. I'm part of a group that holds the rooftop protests in Marysville. And so we live in Arlington, and Arlington is this pocket that's kind of turned out to be like Snohomish, right? And I've been fighting the fight for going on 6 years now up here. And I guess my best advice for you is any change is change, right? And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go full force, like blow everybody up and expose everybody right now. And any action and movement forward is progress, and it feels not good enough, right? Like, we are actively attending our city council meetings every Monday because they're in this like knockdown, drag out fight over the thin blue line flag. And there are certain city council members that are just adamant that this flag must fly on city flagpoles. And they almost don't even care what anybody else says. It's just, this is what we believe, even though we voted them in, right? Like, we elected these people, and people have spoken out, and people have spoken out in support of. But some of the training that Michael was talking about, our mayor went to that training over the summer, and another one of our city council members has gone to that training, and our police chief went to that training, and they all agreed that the flags coming down would be the best course of action. The members that are standing tall behind their stance and saying the flags must fly have not gone to that training, and are pretty much refusing to just hear even the other side of the story. And so, you know, I've got 2 or 3 daughters. I myself am half white and half Mexican. My daughters are half black, white, Mexican, right? They're everything. And so we're this like little weird conglomeration of a family up here, and we fight it on all fronts. It started in the school district for me, and just, you know, when I see something wrong, I just point it out. Hey, like, this is going on. Do you guys know this? And then follow through. Honestly, there's been little movement. Part of that is because some of the beliefs here in town are so staunch and so deeply rooted in so many people's minds, that it takes a long time to get that change of heart is really what it is. There has to be a change of heart. It has to hit somebody close to home, before they are willing to really listen and say, huh, you're people too. And I guess that's kind of just some of the best advice that I'm able to give kids. I'm a teacher too, is that you have to make it about the person. It's about people, right? We are all people. And really, that's what we want people to know.
Yeah, I think that's really good. So my question about the city council then is, what did you do to get them to go to the training? How did you propose that to them? And like, what were the steps you took? Because I mean, I would like to take those same steps as well. I just don't.
I didn't. So we have an awesome gentleman in our school district that was the principal at Weston, and he's now at the district office, and he is our diversity, inclusion, whatever we're calling it. He's the guru at the school district. And Will he goes to any and all trainings, and he does all these things, and he actually was putting them on and hosting, and I don't know, he was hosting these. Erica, did you know more about how Will got the city council to put it together?
I think that so a few things happened, and this is just from observation. I actually haven't asked Will how he got it to be put together, but just some things that I've noticed, like Will was there at the march, and there was also the pastor was there at the march in March. And so I think that, and then Jonathan was there, I shouldn't say names, sorry. The police chief was there, and he saw, you know, all these different people from different levels of the community. You know, when you've got pastors, when you've got teachers, when you've got everybody coming together for this, I think it took that. And then they also formed Stronger Together, which was not for Black Lives Matter. That's for everything. That's for
that had been going on for a long time.
Oh, okay. So, but I feel like it kind of, the city got involved in that. Was the city involved in that from the beginning?
No, Will, that was originally Will's kind of pet project with the district. It was going to be something that we originally had reached out and we're going to do with us in Darrington and trying to get the
Okay.
two districts together. And then he reached out to the city for something, and the mayor was like,
Yeah.
want in.
Once he reached out to the city for that, I feel like that's when it really snowballed from there.
Yeah, so I've talked to Will about this a little bit. Actually going to be co-instructing the diversity classes for the Granite Falls School District and for the city, hopefully in January. And so he pretty much spelled it out to me as he, at the march, he just thought of what can he do to challenge not only himself, but leaders there in town to learn and to grow. And so he threw out the idea of, I'm going to teach these classes, and leaders said, okay, if you do it, we'll be there. And that's pretty much how that happened. So he was developing the courses like right up to the minute of each class being done over the summer. And he did that because he just said he had to do something. And so he threw the idea out without even actually having the curriculum made for the class, which is awesome on his part to get that done. And I'm really thankful that he's giving me the opportunity to teach these classes with him and to continue to develop the curriculum more and actually add to it.
Can I get in here?
Yeah.
Let's take a page out of the original civil rights movement. One of the things that they did that was very effective was boycotts. And I told my wife after May 31st, I said, as long as Cartack is the mayor of Snohomish, I'm not giving that place a damn dime. And I have also suggested this in Arlington around the Blue Lives Matter flag. Look, as long as those flags are up, I'll shop somewhere else. And we don't need to just be talking to the city council. We need to be going after the chambers of commerce. And I was in a debate with the Chamber of Commerce on Monday night, the Arlington Chamber of Commerce. They're all begging people to shop, and they're all begging for money to keep them afloat. Hey guys, if you want to support something that keeps a large part of your customer base away, you're free to do so. But you're not going to get any of my money while you're doing it.
Right, because
And that is very effective.
DABA, the Downtown Business Association, they were fighting hard, at least on the social media circuit, saying, oh, let's get everybody a flag, which I'm totally fine. If private business and individual citizens want to fly the flag, go for it, right? That's our individual thing. I don't think that they should be flown on city poles for a number of reasons. I mean, I remember the first time I saw those flags flying downtown Arlington, I was shocked. And I was like, whoa, what? Okay.
It's like I stepped into fascism that day. I'm like, what is happening?
I mean, I've gone to some city council meetings for the city of Snohomish, and I've listened to the public comment section of that, and that gets, I'll say there's a lot of shouting at Cartag, which is definitely deserved in there, but then there's some good calls to action, specifically like Ryan, you were just saying, boycotting Snohomish businesses, and I know a lot of other people want to do that. I'm just wondering, how do we organize that so that actually happens? I mean, Snohomish for Equity doesn't take a very big stance when it comes to putting things together to get stuff running and rolling in Snohomish for other than protests. In my opinion, I don't see them doing a bunch of stuff like boycotting or writing into city councilors or trying to do that. They haven't taken a very crazy approach to that. So I'm wondering how would we do that in Snohomish?
Well, if I
Go
can interject here, so what I've been trying to focus on the last few weeks is really on trying to get all the different groups locally connected. I think that what we've done over the summer is we've started conversations and we've gotten to see and highlight where our community leaders stand. And so, on one front, we have to look at things from a political side, and whoever is able to be voted out of office, we take that step, and those that remain, we have to continue to work and grind on them to try to push them towards change. But on the other side of it, we have to try to gather support from our fellow community. We have to gather more support from people who are not being seen and voices that are not being heard. Because at this point in time, what we've all done is we've put our faces out there, we put our names out there, and now it's 3 to 6 months later, and now they're starting to see the same voices and hear the same voices, see the same faces, see the same names, and it's starting to fall on deaf ears. And so if we, as I call it, the east of I-5 group, Snohomish, Granite Falls, Arlington, Marysville, Lake Stevens, if our areas can start to combine and we show support to one another and we continue to share our stories across each other's boundaries, we're going to amplify the voices of one another. And so when it comes to organizing in Snohomish, if you can get things organized there, if you can get some people behind you and we all show up behind you as well, we can make more of an impact on things. And if we can all start to come up with ideas and ways to reach each other's city councils and to reach the community members of each other's towns, sign waving may not be the best way anymore. So what's our new approach? Can we all start to do book drives? Can we all start to do helping with Christmas lights and building relationships with other community members who maybe don't know about our groups and what the work that we've been doing over the summer? There's a lot of people that I've met in the last few weeks who put their heads down over the summer and turned the TVs off and deleted Facebook, and they've had no idea that I was sign waving here. And they're like, I never drove through town on Friday, so I never knew anything. I heard about it a couple of times. I thought it was once or twice, and that was it. And they actually are people who want to help. They're people who want to give time to do more actionable things. They're people who actually are like, are you going to sign wave again? I'll be there. They're people who are like, hey, when's the next city council meeting? Because I want to say something. There are people who say, hey, I spoke to my neighbor. He's Black, and he has a story to tell too. Do you know him? Oh, let me introduce you. So as long as we're all doing these things of just talking to people and continue to look for others, I think we're going to make change. But we can't expect it to happen right now. I think right now, with the elections, with certain things that are happening, we're just hitting a wall. We're hitting this wall that's there just because of timing. But if we continue to get our reinforcements together, I guarantee this spring we will see some major changes happening.
Definitely. I mean, Snohomish is definitely trying to support all of that. I see there's definitely the support for like any sort of protest. Like the biggest protest we've had in Snohomish, I think it was like 1,000 people showed up to it. We marched through the whole city for a good few hours when that happened. And we definitely have the support of a few council members as well, because some of them also came with us and marched with us when we were doing it. And so I think that after the election, that would be good to do some more stuff like that. Maybe like letter campaigns or anything that would be good to protest that isn't always sign waving and stuff that we can come up with like that.
Yeah, and the one thing that I would say is I feel like there's two things that we have to be mindful of outside of just community member fatigue, but we have to be mindful that like as a person of color, like me as a Black man and this discussion, like it's been months of having these conversations, and so there is that sense of like how long do you push before you break down, and before you want to take that step back and just say, you know what, screw it, like this isn't working. And so I'm trying to like just reinvent what we're doing in the sense of, okay, we've sine waved, now what? We are going to go do some community action, now what? I've the discussion now, I've gotten a couple of groups together from Lake Stevens and the Artist and Activism group, and I reached out to everyone this week about, we need to start planning now for Martin Luther King and Black History Month, and we need to do something that is different than what we've always done. You know, we can't just have the same Martin Luther King story of the march on Selma, Alabama. We can't just talk about the Montgomery, the bus boycott and Rosa Parks. Like, we have to talk about a deeper history. We have to highlight, you know, Fred Hampton and the Rainbow Coalition in Chicago with the Black Panthers. There are things that happened that have been overlooked, and there's atrocities that have happened that have been dismissed in our history, that we have to start to highlight those things, because we need to understand where we truly came from, not the whitewashed history of where we think and what we've been molded to believe, but we have to know what things really were. And when we start to see what things really were, we can really look at where we came from and say, okay, we don't want to go back to this. And how do we get back to where we truly want to be? We want to be the land of the free. We want to be the home of the brave. We want to be, you know, all men are created equal. All women are equal. We want to be all these things. But like, how do we really get there? Because if we're not looking at things from a place of equity, then we don't know where the default is, where the deficiencies are that we are trying to fight against. You know, when it comes to Snohomish, I think that is the area that has gotten attention. I personally feel like there's a lot of media attention that has already been there, and if we could focus on that area, the media is more concerned with what's happening in Snohomish than anywhere else in our county. So if we could really bolster things there, I think that it will spread out and spread to Lake Stevens and spread to Granite Falls.
Well, the problem is
Arlington.
we've had so many problems happen within just this last year. Because if you look at last year, I think one of the biggest racial issues that no one even thinks about anymore is what happened at GP last year, Glacier Peak High School. If anyone remembers, last year during an assembly that happened at the school, the Wi-Fi networks came up, and people were making racial slurs on them and being harassing the principal. And there was so many things that happened during that. And so many people showed up from Snohomish after that. Snohomish for Equity, we had a giant meeting, and we decided to have it at a local church. There's so many people that came. People were standing outside because there's so many people that came to that. But then after that, it died down for a super long time. And I think that we need more big events like that that'll keep everyone engaged, because once it dies down, the movement goes down, and then you see people like Hartak and other council members think that it's completely fine for them to do what they want because no one's talking about it anymore. And right now, I think we have to keep that movement up and keep the environment going that we have.
Can I slide in
And
here?
so that's what I've seen. That's what I've seen for in Granite Falls specifically, is that you know, a lot of people showed up for the march, and a lot of people came out in the beginning. A lot of people joined Change the Narrative. A lot of people like wanted to speak with me in June. And things died down because there are some people who I feel wanted to reach out and wanted to be present so that they could be seen as anti-racist. They didn't really want to do the work of anti-racism. They just wanted you to see their face. They wanted me to see their face and think they're not racist. And within that, we've gathered that there are some of us who really want to do this work, but even within that, some of us want to protest, some of us want to sign waves, and some of us don't. Some of us want to write letters to city council. Some of us want to be on those meetings. Some of us want to be on the policy side of things, and some of us don't. So I think what we really have to do is make sure that as we work through this and as we continue to move forward, that we're diversifying our approaches. We're doing multiple things that involve what the skill sets everybody wants to use and the forum that people want to show up in. If we can start to be more organized with our committees and the action we're trying to do, then we're going to make more progress. I think there's some people who want to do the community service side. Some people want to be mentors. They want to be in meetings with people. They want to go. They want to just show up and give a day and help to build a ramp for people. They want to help with serving food. They want to help with just building the community and moving us along in that way and social interaction. There's some of us who want to go to those city council meetings, who want to be there on those committees that are created, equity committees and boards that are making decisions, that are changing policy, that are looking at how things are falling apart. And that's fine. And then there's some of us who just want to be there, and we want to be on the streets, and we want to be there shaking hands with people. We want to be holding signs. We want to be there for the person who says white power. We want to be there to attack them like when they are disrespectful, and that's fine too. So if we find a way to get all of us out there and all of us keep all of us busy, then I think we won't see as much of a decline overall in the numbers that we have when these things happen. I think we will be able to retain people by saying, okay, you showed up to this meeting. Now, which direction do you want to go in? Here are your options. You can help this way.
Part of it too, I feel, is again that personal piece. So I'm so glad that Snohomish sounds like they have a much larger portion of the population that is willing to come out than we have in Arlington. We had our measly little march and it was like, Erica, would you say maybe 200 people? But it was great to see. However, it was mostly high school kids. It was almost all high school kids. Which was awesome, right? It was high school kids, some teachers, and then some like random people from town, which is a little bit disheartening and also scary because we're in a group with a couple hundred high school kids and there are armed men standing on the side of the road screaming at us. You know, and you've been there, right? So making it personal, the people that are even on the fence of what it is that we're talking about, they have to have a personal piece. They have to know somebody that this is directly affecting. And they have to, more than just say hi to that person, they need to be friends with that person. And even still, they have to be more than friends with that person. They have to know the pain that comes with the things. Because people that my girls, especially my oldest daughter, thought were friends in school have said and done horrible things to her and to people around her. You know, and that's not a friend. That's not somebody that you should be talking to in that capacity. They need to be willing to put themselves out there and to be standing up for you, not questioning you when you're going to a meeting to try to establish a Black student union, right? So I don't know, just making it personal. And I don't know how to do that anymore. Michael, I'm at a point where I'm just like, where do we go? What do we do? I'm feeling the fatigue. We are all feeling the fatigue of just all of it. Steadfast is all I just keep saying. I'm going to stay with it because I have to. I know I have to. But where do we go? What do we do?
I want to slide in here real quick. Ethan, you and Ethan and everybody else here, you don't have to wait for someone to organize something you believe in. You can do it yourself. And when it comes to things like the boycott, I have been on a 20-year boycott of Walmart. I won't walk in one unless I have to deliver. One of my greatest triumphs was I was delivering block to the Walmart on 67th and Route 9 in Marysville, and I was driving a lease truck and the oil filter fell off and puked oil all over that place. while they were building it. That was a big cleanup. It makes no difference to Walmart whether or not I shop there. But I don't want to be a part of it. And I'm not going to be a part of it. And I'm not giving Snohomish a damn dime. And I'm not going to give Arlington a dime if those flags are flying. These are things you can do on your own, and you don't need somebody to lead it for you. Take your stand and stick with it. And start there. That's how these things all start. You don't have to wait for somebody to organize something. You can try and organize it yourself. If it falls apart, you can still do yourself what you wanted to do. And you're better off for it. So pick your battle and decide if you want to fight it. Yeah, if out of those 1,000 people in Snohomish, 200 of them held signs that said "won't spend a dime in Snohomish while Cartack is mayor," by God, that would have gotten a whole lot of attention.
I mean, the thing I would want to do if I could get the chance, and it's really, I don't know if I first of all have the time or can, I would want to start a recall vote for Cartack. Because the one thing that we see in Snohomish, everyone's saying recall Cartack, and we see signs. That was like one of the signs that I saw out of everyone in Snohomish that was protesting were recall Cartack signs. But there's not been a petition made or anything like that. So I'd want to create a petition to recall Cartack. But the thing for me is I can't even sign that petition. First of all, because I can't vote yet. But second of all, I don't even know exactly what to do to make that petition. I mean, I looked it up online and found the RCW, but there's not that much information other than make a petition that you get people to sign. So
okay, I can tell you what to do. I can't tell you how to do it, but there is a Recall Fortney group. Email the admins of that group and ask them how they did it. And you can somewhere out there. There's and I think isn't Cartack up next year?
No, he's up in 2023 because he just won re-election in 2019.
Is that long? Okay.
That's too long.
That's why I thought he was up next year. That's why nobody was doing it. You can, find a recall group and talk to one of them. They will either tell you how to do it or they will know somebody who can tell you how to do it. And I'm almost positive, Jordan, back me up on this. Multiple people in the Recall Fortney group are from Snohomish, right?
Yeah, and there's like 2 or 3 attorneys involved in their committee. So they have legal involvement and they are pretty active. I know that they would at least be willing to give advice on how to proceed forward.
Yeah,
Get an attorney in your pocket that lives in Snohomish.
Colin, I would definitely suggest reaching out to Colin McMahon and Ethan. We can get you guys in. I can get you guys in touch with each other. But recalls are very, very hard in Washington State. We're seeing this with the Sheriff Fortney one. We just saw it this past week with the Shama Sawant and the Mayor Durkin recalls in Seattle. You can't just, as much as it would be cool if you could, but you can't just get a bunch of people to sign a petition, turn it in and say, yep, we're going to recall him. There's a lot more that you have to do. You actually have to show that they have broken their oath of office. And most of the time that is through legal proceedings. So you have to go to a Superior Court judge, and the Superior Court judge has to say, yes, this legal brief, so it has to be a legal brief that is presented to them, is enough evidence to show that they broke their oath of office. Once that goes through, they have the person who you're recalling has a chance to not agree with it and forced it to go to the state Supreme Court, which is what Fortney did. And the state Supreme Court ruled that he did break his oath of office, or it was sufficient evidence to show that he broke his oath of office. Then from there, you get 90 days to get a petition of I believe it's 20% or 30% of all registered voters who voted in the last election. So for Snohomish County, for the Sheriff Fortney one, we need to get 42,000 signatures. Once that happens, it then goes to the Secretary of State's office, who then has to go and verify. They do a verification where they check anywhere from 15 to 20% of all the signatures, and if more than 1% are mismatched, then they have to check everything, and then from there the recall campaign begins, and then it's once the county auditor reviews all that, anywhere from 45 to 90 days will be a special election for a recall. So it takes a lot of time and legal stuff for a recall to happen.
Yeah, that sounds really, really complicated, and that's one of the other reasons why. I mean, like, I want him to be recalled in any way that could be possibly happen, but like, I don't know if I have the time or the money to do all those things. Like, I'm assuming for the Sheriff Fortney one, how much would that have even costed, like, that committee to have that all that go through in the courts, right?
Right now, they raised $15,000 last time I checked, but the 3 lawyers with the public defender's office who are leading it, they did it pro bono, because obviously they're the ones leading the recall, so they can do it pro bono. Sheriff Fortney and his legal group, because the Snohomish County prosecutor Adam Cornell said that he wouldn't defend, his office wouldn't defend Sheriff Fortney in court, because they believe that he broke his oath of office. So he had to get a private attorney, which they raised $90,000 in his defense, and he has used like 87,000 of that in legal fees. And that was just to go to the one recall event, because there's 2 recall campaigns against him. And if he had contested both of them, it would have been probably $150,000.
That's definitely expensive. But yeah, if you get me in contact with them, I'd definitely be interested in seeing if what that would entail, and try to get something going, because I definitely know there's a lot of people in Snohomish that would want to see that and make that happen. So yeah.
Hey, Jordan, put your send them your email address.
Yeah, right now it's private for Joy, so I can only send it to Joy. So Joy, if when I post,
I can find you on Facebook later if you want to do that as well.
I'm friends with Ryan, so you can friend me on Facebook.
Okay, cool. Michael, I'll turn it back over to you. You said you couldn't stay super long. You've already stayed a lot longer than you wanted.
I fixed the chat.
Do
Sorry,
what?
I fixed the chat.
Okay. Give us a good power out so you can so you can go. Thank you for showing up, by the way.
Yeah,
as
no,
always,
I mean,
outstanding info.
Yeah, so everyone, I think really what it comes down to is, we have to understand, as Natalie pointed out, that we have to build and make things personal for people to change. It's a change of heart. But also, we have to be patient and understand that, like, we are not going to make immediate change all the time, and that this is a battle of longevity. There's always going to be hate. I had someone ask me, he is a very high up in the State Department of Corrections chain of command, and he used to be my superintendent when I worked for the Department of Corrections. And he asked me the question of, what's my end goal? What is my end goal in stopping racism? And I told him, I asked him the question, I said, do you think that racism is ever going to go away? And he said, no. He said, there's always going to be hate. There has to be good. He said, there has to be evil in order to be good. There has to be light in order to have darkness. And so I asked him, I said, okay, well, if you don't think that there's hate and that hate is ever going to go away, then that would mean that I can never stop being anti-racist, and I can never stop working against stopping that hate, because it's always going to be there. I'm always going to have something to do. So I urge us all to remember that we're always going to have something to do. And so with always having something to do, we always have to be focused on self-care and taking care of one another and being there for one another, because we can't do this alone. This has always got to be a group effort. It's always got to take a little bit of time for us. It's always got to take a little bit of commitment from us. And it's going to be the long haul. So that's sort of the thing where I think it comes into having that discussion of building on communication and building on education, because education doesn't stop in this. None of us are lifetime knowledge historians, so we can always learn. We can always look back at our history. We can always look at what's happening presently and share that with others. And we can always, nothing that we see is ever going to be something where we know all the answers to. We always remember 9/11, and I always find something new out about 9/11 every year. We always talk about veterans and Memorial Day, and I always learn something about another war. I always learn something about a battle. I always learn something about a Union battle that's happened. Like, there's always something that we can learn. And so with that being said, there's always something that we're going to be able to do with bridging the gap of anti-racism and those who don't believe in it. So just keep staying encouraged and keep working. And I appreciate every single one of you who continue to do that. And I will be there with any of you who ask me to be there. And I appreciate you all for being here tonight.
All right. Thank you, Michael. If you want to leave, go ahead. You've already been here far longer than you said you would be. And thank you for showing up tonight. As always, wonderful conversation. I will talk to you this week. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Joey, we can turn off recording.